Charles Floate, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you, Julian?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. You were talking about some of the link building strategies and what's changed for you in 2026, including, for example, mentions versus backlinks. What are you working on there?
Yeah, so backlinks have, like I said earlier, backlinks have become less important just because they are essentially kind of a linear channel now. They're one channel. They only tend to be optimizing for the search algorithm, the traditional blue links algorithm. Yes, it might be Bing, Yahoo, maybe a little bit as well. Majority of it's just going to be Google, so that's the one singular channel. Now, when you have mentions and you're building mentions for AI SEO specifically, you're going to be targeting Google AI Overviews, Google AI Mode, Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, Reddit AI, any AI that you can kind of throw your hat at, right? Even Claude, all these kind of massive frontier models that are getting these huge audiences. You're now effectively marketing to all of them if you do the mention building properly.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, for example, like if you were doing like a top 10 list, you could post that not just on a blog article, but across like Twitter, across Reddit, across LinkedIn. And it doesn't even have to be like linked in that way.
Exactly, yeah. So, and Google, to be fair, with its traditional algorithm, has gotten better at semantically connecting documents without the actual link. Even with mentions, even that kind of thing, it's getting better at building entities, building associations, building co-occurrence, and all that kind of thing from the data that it has with the traditional algorithm, let alone AI after fact. So you are definitely seeing a big uptick kind of across the board with that.
Yeah, there's one thing I'm gonna notice. Like, for example, we ran some experiments across a few friends' websites where it's like, okay, you don't have to link to us inside the article, but just like list us inside that listicle, and it would like show up straight away inside Google AI Overviews, even without the backlink.
Yeah, getting cited in the AI Overviews is not that difficult.
No.
And there's not really any verification or fact checking or anything going on there. So it makes it quite easy to manipulate if the search itself isn't that competitive, if you don't need to spam, if you can spam a bunch of pages in the index and actually get the traditional index to retrieve them or rank them, then the retriever will be able to pick them up and process them and actually extract that thing. I don't know if you saw Lily Ray's experiment where she was doing a blog post about SEOs having various side expertise. And she said that one of the SEOs was the best at building sandcastle in the world. And Google's AI Overviews came back with this SEO is the best at building sandcastles in the world.
It's pretty funny, actually. I think especially like if you look at Google AI Mode, which is reportedly coming into play like basically that'll replace Google eventually, right? The Google AI Mode. If anyone's not sure, it's basically like where you full screen inside the AI, kind of like ChatGPT. And I think like if you look at that and the way it's going to rank people, it's not necessarily linking out to websites as well. It's more mentions inside the content.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it will look like. The actual AI Mode, AI Overview, whatever it's going to end up being called, the new search interface or experience or generative experience, whatever that's going to be called. I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like, but at some point it's going to become the default. And that experience is going to change how we are looking and optimizing search right now. But like you said, I think we're going to see a lot less citations, a lot less sources, and just in general, trying to optimize for the customer journey. It sounds a bit, like white hat marketing, that kind of thing, a bit cringe corporate stuff. But you're trying to essentially do the every optimization where you're trying to have your entity as directly associated with the specific co-occurring sources as you could. As an example, if you wanted to do the SEO or marketing for HubSpot, you want to try and have CRM and CRM tools as highly associated with HubSpot as physically possible. So every single query that any user puts into the AI, it somewhat spits out a recommendation for HubSpot.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like a lot of people talk about query fan out as well, where you're creating content for those long tail keywords that could fan out from the original post, right?
Yeah, so Google in I/O, actually the recent I/O event from Google, they actually confirmed the query fanouts, and I think it was up to 16 different fanouts per query. So AI Overviews, it's generally a lot less. You're only going to be dealing with like 3, 4, 5, maybe like 7 query fanouts. But for AI Mode, for the actual Gemini grounding and things like that, you're dealing with up to 16 different query fanouts. And a lot of people are thinking, oh, well, it must just be similar to the auto suggest box in Google. But the query fanouts are massively different. You're not dealing with, okay, best CRM tools and then best CRM tools for small businesses or best CRM tools for accountants or something like that. You're actually dealing with a lot of the query fan out goes to be specifically trained based on the training data. So as an example, it will go and compare it'll add a query into the query Fanout for the top 2 biggest CRM tools on the planet, which might be HubSpot and Salesforce. And one of the query Fanouts might be HubSpot versus Salesforce, right? But that would not usually play any role in a traditional SEO sense whatsoever. You would not have that kind of association built with the traditional best CRM tools keyword at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Have you seen a big difference between ranking, for example, inside ChatGPT versus Google AI overviews versus even Google AI mode? Because I know it's like sometimes even the search between Google AI mode and Google AI overviews is quite often different.
Yeah, they are different. So inherently, they're going to be different based on the training data and kind of even like I tend to see a lot of the queries that I tend to look at, which is things like marketing and cybersecurity, OPSEC, all those kind of things. They actually tend to be somewhat guideline filtered. So there's like safety mechanisms inside of the models to try and prevent them from doing harm or try and prevent them from recommending the wrong thing. And that will even actually edit the query that you end up getting out. So there's all sorts of different things that come into play that are actually editing the query. But the number one thing from an AI SEO standpoint is the sourcing weighting. So certain models, certain companies, whatever it is, have higher weighting for certain websites, certain partnerships especially. So OpenAI, for example, has partnerships with the Washington Post and I think the Atlanta Press and a bunch of other big news sites. We've done the weighting tracking. They tend to show up 300 to 500% higher than any other news site, as an example, like CNN or something like that, that isn't a direct partnership with OpenAI. Now that's an obvious one because of they're going to prioritize the people that they can directly scrape and crawl all the time. But there are other ones where ChatGPT tends to prefer Reddit, whilst Gemini tends to prefer YouTube, right? And that means that there's going to be slightly more optimization work that you're going to want to be doing for YouTube for Gemini versus Reddit for ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think like the biggest cheat code for AI overviews right now is just using a YouTube channel that you have, and it just reads the transcript, and you get in there straight away.
Yeah, that's the one advantage that Gemini and Google has, is that they can read any transcript of any video, whereas every other model, it has the capacity to read transcripts if they're accessible. But if they're not accessible, if you turn them off, if they're disabled, if YouTube's blocking them for whatever reason, it might be geo-blocking them, it might be filtering them from you because it thinks you're trying to extract data from it. There's all sorts of reasons, right? Then Gemini and Google are, again, the only ones that actually have that advantage. So that's, again, probably why they're prioritizing YouTube a bit more. But it does mean that those specific sites, if you can be the number one for those queries on those sites as well with video content, with Reddit posts, with social posts, with whatever it is, then you tend to also have a much higher advantage going onto the actual AIs itself as well.
Yeah, that's it. And I think one thing we've also seen is like just ranking on, even creating content on Reddit. Sometimes that outperforms our own website quite often. Are you still experimenting with Parasite?
Yeah, 100%. Parasite has effectively been just transitioned into AI SEO. Like this is the thing. Parasite SEO was such a good technique for traditional SEO. And the fact that most of the websites that we are posting on are the same authority websites that are being favored by these big frontier models, that allows us to basically just go, okay, well, we're going to switch trying to optimize these Parasite pages to get clicks and to get affiliate sales and to get CPA signups and things like that. And we're just going to optimize them for mentions, which actually makes it so much easier to rank them in the traditional algorithm anyway, because you don't have to stuff them full of affiliate links, which are getting devalued by Google's algorithm.
Yeah, that's it. Like, actually, I mean, it's quite liberating in a way because you don't have to smash loads of links in there. It's just about getting the mentions.
Exactly, yeah. And there's a lot of the time as well, you're getting kind of a double or an overlapping favor, where the actual AI model itself will prefer reputable, trustworthy, high authority publications and news sources. And then the underlying traditional blue links algorithm tends to also prefer those high authority news sites and sources as well. So you get a kind of compounding effect where your visibility tends to be hundreds of % higher from a post on those websites than any post on your own website could ever be, unless obviously you're dealing with like Coca-Cola.com or some crazy big brand or something like that.
Yeah. Are you still building websites out as well?
Not really anymore, apart from branded sites, so if like our own SaaS projects or e-com or stuff like that. We're not really investing in like niche sites or anything anymore. There's very few instances where we've come into a niche and we're like, wow, there's not that many AI reviews. There's really high CPA commissions going on here, and maybe let's build out a site. But even then, the majority of the time we're still building up Parasite pages and we're doing the testing with Parasite pages first. If it works, then even then it's still a maybe. We might invest into an own niche website, but it comes with so much additional risk and build and effort and all of these kind of things versus just paying a newspaper to put an AI post live on their website,
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, do you prefer to pay newspapers to put the Parasite on, or like you prefer social media channels, or do you use a combination of everything?
So it's always SERP dependent. So whatever the SERP is ranking best, and a lot of the time the SERP tends to already rank a Reddit thread. So if we can get a new Reddit thread and overtake existing one, then 100% we want to do that. But if the existing Reddit thread has 1,000 upvotes and 500 comments, then we're probably not going to be overtaking them anytime soon, right? And so the majority of the Parasite pages that we're building are paid. So that, and a lot of the time, most people think that, oh, Charles is probably buying like $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 Parasite pages. The majority, I would say 90%, 95% of the pages that we're buying are under $200.
Well, yeah, that's pretty reasonable, isn't it? I mean, it's literally the same price as a backlink, really.
Exactly, yeah. We're buying guest posts most of the time, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely. And do you use any tools to scale out the Parasite? Like, for example, I'll give you an example. So we interviewed Jesper Nissen the other week, and he's doing SoMe poster. Have you tried anything like that?
So we tend to just use tiered links, social signals, and traffic blasts. And that's all internal processes that we've developed rather than external tools. There's a bunch of services and tools and things like that that you can use to go and buy the same equivalent. PressWiz has a tiered link building service. There's services like Amplitude or Amplify and Rankers and things like that that do like social and traffic blasting and things like that. But most of them, again, if you set these services up yourself or set these processes up yourself, you can do most of these blasts for $20, $30, right? Most of these services will charge you $1,000, $3,000 for the exact same thing, basically. So most of the time, it's worth going and setting up these processes yourself. It just takes a lot of testing and development. And the main problem is that most people don't have a test website or something to do that development on, and you cannot do the development on your own brand site, because if something goes wrong, which inevitably it will and always does go wrong, you're going to burn that site to the ground.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So you usually your technique then is you look at the SERPs, you're like, right, okay, based on whatever's already ranking, if we can outrank that particular post or place it higher with links, we'll go for that method.
Exactly, yeah. And in general, a lot of the Parasite pages that we're buying, because they're already high authority publications, they've got a lot of niche authority, that kind of stuff for their keywords, that without doing anything to them, they'll be on page 1 anyway, right? They might not be top 3, but they'll be position 7, 8, 9, something like that. And it will just take a little bit of extra juice, like a couple links, some social signals and traffic, that kind of thing. It's not much. Like I said, it could be a $10, $20 blast. A lot of the time it is that level to get it into that top 3 spots. And because you're building Parasite pages, it's generally not just one page that you're targeting for that keyword. You're building 10, 15 pages, and 5 or 6 of them might fail. But even in failure, they might end up ranking number 1 for like some ultra long tail keyword that makes you loads of money anyway. That data then transfers over to your next campaign. And that's how you like scale up these really profitable Parasite campaigns, because the more data that you collect from every page that goes live, the better and higher ROI campaigns that you build every time.
Yeah, so it's like a positive feedback loop where you see, okay, here's what we're ranking for, here's what's actually making money. Let's use that on the next campaign, or let's use that for inspiration.
Like, these sites didn't work, these keywords don't convert, right? So it's like net negatives as well. And so you don't go for this next time, you go for this, and you don't use this next time, you use this. And that just constantly like improves over time. And then when algorithm updates happen, because occasionally as well, this is the other thing, that page that failed, the next algorithm update comes around and it goes to number 1. And now you know that Parasite page is going to dominate all of your keywords. So then you go and buy every new post that you can for all of your keywords on that site, right? And we've done that routinely, where we've just seen, as an example, I talked about this last week, Routers went to number 1 in January for basically every affiliate keyword in existence for their press releases, because Google retuned the algorithm to favor press releases and UGC and root authority and real life publications and media publications, etc., etc. They went, you could buy a press release from Routers and it would be page number 1 for best online casino in 2 hours. Like there's crazy levels like that. But we only knew that because I built Parasite pages on Routers 2 years ago. And suddenly that Parasite page that I had in my tracker from 2 years ago had pinged to #1 and I got an email alert. Right.
That's what I was going to ask actually, was how are you tracking all of this?
Yeah, we just have a custom tracker that sends me daily email alerts for everything.
Nice.
And then I want to, so this is the thing. We built this custom tracker before AI, right? And originally it was meant to be sold. We were trying to do like a SERP tracking solution. However, I want to now try maybe using like Fable or something to massively improve the entire system, because I think that we could have like an alert system that could within the hour tell us that this Parasite page is going to the moon or something like that, which that kind of knowledge would allow you to effectively dominate like crazy niches very, very quickly.
Yeah, so like the sooner you get the feedback, then you can make changes based on that.
Exactly, yeah. And so I want to have some kind of alert system. Again, maybe if it gets good enough at like browser control and managing that kind of stuff, it could even do some of the free Parasite page, like agentic building. So we can do it like WordPress.com and like a bunch of individual stuff like Substack and stuff, right? Because they've all got APIs or they've got some way to connect to it. Yeah. But there's loads of little random Parasites and stuff that you have to like, upload a PDF to or something like that. And that takes a bit of extra kind of maneuvering to get the agent to properly work. But I think the next couple of months, that should be very doable. You know, like I would say like 80% of the free Parasites, you should be able to manage through some sort of agentic workflow.
Yeah, that's it. We actually did something similar where we had a Substack browser use solution. So like every single day on a schedule, it would just post to Substack, engage with other people, but it wasn't doing it through the API. It was doing through the browser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
but it was still a little bit like, it's not 100% there, you know?
Yeah, you can use like browser automation scripts like TypeScript and things like that and stuff. And it tends to work. It's just the moment a UX thing changes, or it breaks overnight, and like it's all that kind of annoying thing straight away. And when you have 100 different Parasites, stuff changes every day, basically. That's what you
can imagine.
Yeah.
Can imagine for sure. Do you know, actually, have you seen, this is interesting. So we used to get a lot of Upwork jobs. We used to get a lot of jobs through Upwork, and we hire a lot of VAs through Upwork, and I know you probably did the same. Have you seen like the share price of Upwork like over the last year? It's dropped by 85%, something like that.
Yeah,
like,
it's similar to like HubSpot's down, Adobe's down, a lot of these like ones as a result of AI, right? A lot of people are saying I do think there's other things happening at the same time, but yeah.
It's just, I think it's interesting like how, for example, like someone like you who would normally hire a team, get niche websites set up and all that sort of thing, it's like that's all fully automatable with Parasite SEO now. And so you wouldn't normally go to somewhere like Upwork to hire someone. It must have a huge impact on the SEO industry.
And I think even like niche blogging and stuff has somewhat died and stuff. And like Edward Stern was saying, a lot of those niche experts have gone to YouTube or they've gone to X or LinkedIn or one of these other platforms, and they don't have the same visibility or the same depth or anything in search anymore. And it's just and that's also been replaced by like 100x AI slop. So
that's not a new chart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hey, I'm a culprit in this race, right? But I do think that it's a bit of a shame, because I do think that like a lot of the real big expertise who would probably put together like a 20,000 word guide that would potentially change somebody's entire understanding of a subject, that's now no longer happening as much. And video learning is fantastic, and I do think it has its place, but I like written learning as well. And I think this with video learning, you have to also like the host, right? And there's always some kind of link to that, whereas when you're reading, you can interpret kind of who it is behind the screen a lot of the time, and that allows you to kind of absorb information in a kind of a more unbiased way.
Yeah, I mean, without going off on a crazy tangent, last one thing that I've seen recently is more and more people are using their agents to learn from guides. So instead of them reading or watching something, they would just /learn, get the agent to go off and read it for them and learn the skill. And that it's almost like so sad in a way. Because if you did write something amazing, it's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to see that. And I think like if we're like 3 or 5 years ahead of people and how they use the internet, because we spend so much time on it, that's probably the way things are going in the future.
And with that summary, you're probably going to miss a lot of the personality and the tone and like the and also maybe the little nitty gritty pieces of information that are actually like the most important bits to kind of learn from. And then I also, my kind of less than optimistic mindset maybe about like the world and things also would be like, potentially you're giving people this like massive tech company the ability to like rewrite the information that you're consuming as well. They could potentially like change little bits of information and things, and even from the system prompt, I've seen it, right? It will declare certain bits of information different, and people have got their own opinions and theories and everything, right, and beliefs. And I think maybe they should be allowed to kind of have those without them being edited.
Well, I can imagine like there'll be some people's names who would be completely removed from like, family friendly like chat GPTs or something like that. So at that point, or for example, if you're like someone who's seen not as credible, then it's just like you don't reach anyone. Nobody knows about you. That would be brutal.
There's one that's like a really horrible case, but I don't know if you know about the OpenAI employee who ended up allegedly committing suicide.
I saw a little bit about that.
Yeah. If you ask ChatGPT about it, it won't directly quote his mother, but his mother's quotes are pretty detrimental to the company, right? So that's where I sort of see the line already starting to be crossed, where I do think the information might be changed. And I also see it kind of being centralized as well. If all of these massive publications and things are just becoming the dominant visibility in AI, does that mean that all of the opinions and everything gets centralized as well by fact, right? Like there's not, if you go and read the massive news publications and stuff, there's not much difference in what they say. But if you go and watch a YouTube expert who actually knows the specifics about that industry, then you get so much more information about them. But that potentially, and I've seen it, does get buried already by AI overviews.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me for sure. How are you using AI in your SEO workflows?
Yeah, so for everything, that's the issue, right? Like we've basically implemented into every kind of element of our workflow. So from auditing to analysis to research to like finding the bits that we get wrong, like before like QA gatekeeping, I would say, has been a massive improvement in terms of our campaigns. Like my team, there's little bits that they would ship wrong, but that's like human nature. And without effectively before, it would have taken somebody hours of oversight to do the same thing that takes an AI 2 minutes or 2 seconds in some instances to do, right? And as an example, the other day, we were going to ship a brand new blog post and they'd missed an I out of one of the letters, or sorry, out of one of the words of the blog post, but the AI caught that, filtered it, got it fixed, and we published it. But again, previously, it probably would have got published with that error. And I think that those little tiny error fixes across the board have probably increased our work process and ability and quality by magnitudes of like 30, 40, 50%.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And do you use mostly Claude for this?
Yeah, it is mostly Claude, to be fair. Like I use, so there's kind of multiple layers at the moment, right? I do use OpenAI because it has the best image model right now, to be fair.
Sure.
And it also tends to have the best intelligence when it comes to prompting and things like that. So I'll often actually get, I use an OpenAI model to edit and improve my prompts. And then I'll even actually get it to edit and improve prompts for Claude. And it does a better job at writing Claude prompts than Claude does of its own prompts, which I think is insane, right? But I also think that Claude tends to write the prompts too safe. It's too like mechanically like natured to how Anthropic is, whereas OpenAI will be a bit more liberal with kind of some of the wording and ability and kind of influence and stuff. And there's like a little bit more injection allowed and things with OpenAI. But for everything else, Claude is just so good at reporting content, UX, dashboards, coding, that kind of stuff. We use Codex. It does swap every so often because occasionally you'll see Anthropic's models just for some reason get like dumbed down for like a day or two. Yeah, I don't know why this happens, but just randomly, like you'll just like Opus 4.8 just went to shit for like 2 days and was like worse than like GPT 4.0 and things and stuff. But for those kind of 2 days, you have to just immediately recognize that and switch over. But that's also kind of the issue that you're dealing with. Like you can't just have one subscription if you want AI to do the best of everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for images, every day of the week, it'd be ChatGPT. And then Claude in general. I mean, Claude, the other thing I worry about is like, Fable 5, that'll be going away on July the 12th. And it's like, when you go back to Opus 4.8, it's nowhere near the same.
Yeah, for coding specifically, it's like, it's just levels and levels ahead of Opus. But I'm hoping that like the GPT 5.6 model that just came out Sol. I don't know if you've seen this, the
It's
announcement.
dropping tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that will be like an immediate replacement, because as soon as Fable's going away in a couple of days, that should hopefully replace it. And from the report card, it does look like it's just as good, if not better, at coding, which is the one thing that we need anyway. Because over the last several years, AI was never that good at coding. It was like, I would say it slowly crept up from like a 10K a year dev to like a 20K a year dev to like a 30K. And now it's probably sitting around like a 60K a year, 75K a year dev, right? 120K, 150K, that's where you start having people that will actually create magic and be able to do a lot of the QA and stuff that even the AI will miss, and maybe do like security fixes and stuff that are way beyond AI's comprehension right now. But it's good enough that you can replace it to build websites, to build basic apps, to do UX, UI, any like even software development. Like we built a couple apps for Windows, a couple apps for mobile and stuff that's got approved on like the App Store and all sorts of things. So it is getting to the point now where it is able to do a lot of the tasks that if you were able to do these tasks to this degree and nobody else was able to do them with this software 3 or 4 years ago, you would be a billionaire. Like it's that crazy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, like we built our own like agentic operating system, literally just using Claude, but I barely understand HTML. Like I couldn't write a full page of HTML, but I can build like a full tool like that with pretty much every automation in it. And it feels almost like magic. It's also a lot of fun. The other thing I have noticed is like I barely hire. Like, usually the first thing that comes to mind is like, can I automate this with Claude? Not, can I get a virtual assistant to do this?
Yeah, exactly. There's like very few hires that are still practical. So I'd like C-suite, you still kind of need a financial controller. You still need a head of marketing to kind of actually create the overall strategy and say who gets delegated and what we need to do and what budgets get allocated and things like that. But the grunt work is just getting like replaced. And I think it will be like SEO and what we're doing in terms of startups and AI and everything. It gets affected a lot more than kind of the real world does to some degree. But robotics is catching up very rapidly. And once robotics actually gets to the point where it is better than a human, which could be 3-4 years away in terms of humanoid robotics for warehousing and things like that. And bear in mind, all it needs to be better than a human is be half as good and be able to work 24 hours. That's the difference, right? And at that point, it's better than a human. And AI is already good enough to control those robotics to be able to replace a lot of that stuff. So I think it will slowly, or maybe potentially very rapidly, at least in the future, start to eat into the other positions as well. But right now, it's literally just kind of the C-suite, and like you need sales guys, and that's basically it. Like we don't need anyone else. I would still say like graphic designers are still worth their weight in gold, because they can edit the graphics to be like specifically what you wanted to the highest degree. But Canva's getting really damn good now as well,
I'm the same. Like even for the sales team, honestly, it's like, because it's a lot. Whoever manages the sales team, like that's a lot of work and training and relentless quality control. It's kind of like, well, if I was starting an SEO agency from scratch again, I would not have a sales team. I would just build like a really nice dashboard that people buy directly from.
Yeah, exactly. I think that would make sense as well. It's also more scalable, because it's open 24/7. You don't have to wait. They can just buy it straight there. Then you can scale up your CRO, you can scale up your traffic, all of that kind of stuff. It's harder to scale if you have a sales guy that only works 9 to 5, like during the course scheduled time. And especially if your client's international, then the sales guys, unless they're committed and you're giving them good commission and stuff, it's a struggle. They're going to have to do calls at 7 a.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and 11 p.m. And most people don't want to work those super unsociable hours.
Yeah, I also wonder like how many people want a strategy session versus just like clicking a button they can buy from. Yeah, I think I learned that because like when we started the AI community, it's grown and scaled way faster because we don't have like the bottleneck of talent. We don't have the bottleneck of having a sales team, and it's way more profitable because there's no people inside the, it is a community, like the people who are the customers. And so it's like, wow, okay, that's how I would rebuild a business in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And also your margins are probably way higher. So,
oh, mate, it's literally to the point where I was speaking to someone about this today. So it's at the point where it's like 4.2x. So for example, like if you had, let's say you had a 200K a month community and then you had an 800K agency, you would make more money with the community.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not
It's
surprised.
insane.
I'm not surprised
Yeah,
at
yeah,
all. Like, yeah. I know a lot of big agency owners that have got agencies that are doing $1 million a month, $2 million a month, maybe more. You know, like up to like $10 million a month, and they're not happy. Like, to be very frank, you know, like they have to manage tons of people. They've constantly got client headaches. They've got clients leaving. They've got employees leaving. They've got like the churn rate is just a horrible thing. They've got government taxes and all this like data protection and crazy stuff to deal with. It's not a great industry, and the margins after tax are like 12%, 8% in most cases. So you need to be making millions of dollars to be able to earn a good amount of money from that. And also because your margins are so good, that allows you to reinvest into the growth of the business way more than you will be able to in an agency where you could only reinvest maybe 5% or 10% of the revenue back into the business as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. And then I think, you know, if you were starting an agency in the future at some point, it would be the agents that do the work. Like, you know, the actual, that's
the agent agency.
Yeah, that's it. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being on. We talked about link building, Parasite, SEO, AI, and robots. So we covered a lot there.
Yeah, massively.
What's the best way for someone to get in touch, or do you want us to drop a link inside the description or anything?
Yeah, just follow me on X at Charles_SEO, and then you can add me on LinkedIn, Charles Floate.
Awesome. All right, thanks.
Thanks for having me.